Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is still not Andy, but George, as both Binman and I continue to hold the fort while Andy is sunning himself on holidays, while we enjoy the horrors of a Melbourne winter. Even Binman has given up the warmth of Southeast Asia to return to the chilly climate back in Melbourne. So welcome back, Binman.
G'day, George. Good. Hey, Demonlanders, back home in wintry Melbourne. It certainly was slightly different temperature walking to the G from the river. It rugged up from the 35, 36 degrees it was in Singapore when I did the 2-hour layover bus tour in Singapore. That's a long time to be at the Singapore airport. So, yes, it was a 100% different experience. I said just before we started that I had all intentions of going, and I slept all right on the plane and thought I'd have a quick nap at 9ish when I got home, and woke up at 1:30 and jumped in the car and got to the G. And I'm really, really pleased I did. It was a really entertaining game, and a lot to unpack. But above all, the most significant thing really is that it was critical 4 points. So absolutely critical 4 points to bank. Terrific game. Looking forward to unpacking it.
Excellent. Well, the game against the Tigers this week resulted in a 46-point win. And as Binman just mentioned, we banked the 4 points, which resulted in almost securing a top 6 spot at this point in time. And certainly with the games that we've got coming up, that's just exactly the right point to be in. Made us 11-6 for the season, and it was our 9th successive win at the MCG. So highlights for the game, and we'll talk about a lot more about the individual performances during it. But Jake Bowie was just magnificent off the half-back line. We'll talk about stats later on, but 894 metres gained from a half-back flanker. It's just an astounding performance. Jack Steele in the middle, 10 tackles this game. Another highlight was Fitzy with 31 disposals playing in the midfield. This is a guy who was playing VFL just a couple of weeks ago, and he's slotted right into the side. What's more, he did it off only 70% game time, so that was something to see. Up forward, of course, JVR kicked 6 goals to better his 5 from the previous week, so he's really hitting his straps in a big, big way. Sadly, we went into this game having lost Harry Petty to a hamstring awareness, I think is the best description that we got from King in his post-match interview, and also Bailey Fritsch, who they took a bit more care about, having dislocated a finger, but apparently it broke the skin. So they just didn't want to risk any infection. So for both Petty and Fritsch, given the conditions on the day, they didn't want to risk them this week in the wet, cold, muddy sort of situation. We were led ably by our captain, Max Gawn, with 36 hit-outs and 2 goals off his own boots. More importantly, he equalled Jim Steins' record of 264 games. So Max is stepping along very nicely, and he is closing very quickly in on Robbie Flowers' 272 games. So we expect to see that before the end of the year. So, Binman, what did you like about the game?
A lot to like about the game. It's funny because I guess it didn't really resonate heaps with me in terms of Maxie's passing that record. I mean, it probably will with when he passes Robbie, but I don't know. It's interesting because we don't have a player who's played more than 300 games, do we? Neat has got 92?
Yeah, Neats.
Neat. Oh, that's right, Neat. Yeah. So he's the only one, yeah. I wonder if he'll make it. That's the question. I wonder if he'll get to 300. How many more seasons will he have to play to get to 300, George?
Well, it depends on how many finals he gets as well. So 264, and he'd be close to it.
Yeah, 6, another season and a bit. So, look, it was a great game, entertaining. I don't want to hear about the Tigers and their magnificent membership base of 350 squillion or whatever it's supposed to be. We'll turn up to the bloody footy. 32,000 the crowd was, and from where I sat, it felt like that was 90% Demons fans. So a really entertaining game of footy, and I'll talk about it in the stats file. But I think that in thinking ahead of the game, I landed basically where you did, that I thought that they probably if they were going to choose a game, that they would have loaded up for this game. And, both games of the Hawthorn, no doubt that was a factor in the Hawthorn sort of second half, as I talked at length about last week. So I won't go into that again. But I think that we were running on top of the ground much better than I thought we were. In my preview pod, I figured that there would be two sort of likely outcomes, that one would go hard early, get a lead, much like we did against Hawthorn, and then control the game from there on in. We did to a degree, but we ran right through, which was super, for me, super exciting to watch, because I said of those, the other option would be that we'd run on top of the ground and look to play our high-octane movement from the back half, and we did. That's exactly what we did all game. So the reason I wanted to see that is, one, because it would likely mean that we'd score over 100, and that was, I think, our 9th time we've scored over 100 this season, which is unbelievable. We're now, round 18, and it's 10-6, is that right? Is it 10-7?
11-6.
11-6, which we won 11 games for the full season last year, didn't we? Is that right? So we're already past that. But we've scored 9 times over 100, and I think collectively it was 5 times last year. We scored over 104 in the previous year, or vice versa. So we've already scored over 100 points. And that's how it played out. That for me, that second option of playing fast and getting back to how we played early in the season was how I wanted to that was what I was hoping to see, and that's what we saw. So it makes for super exciting footy. The risk, though, is it does give the opposition a look. And we gave them a fair look. I thought the Tigers, played all right in patches, and as I said in the preview, it's really tough for them given the quality of their players that are out. Like Laylor, he is back in 2 or 3 weeks, so hopefully for them that they do. I really like the fact that Uze has made it clear he's not playing defensive footy. He wants them to play a particular way. He was really clear about that in the loss after the loss last week in the Blues, that he wanted to play Tiger footy, and I really admire that. Their percentage is woeful, so it would be really easy to put the cue in the rack a little bit and make games dour and try to sort of make them real battles, but he didn't. And I think, to be honest, that's how I would want them to do. If I was a Tigers fan, I'd want them to play that way too, because you got to learn those systems, and there's only one way to do it, is to play that system. But it made for an exciting flowing game, which I'll unpack. Just a comment, because I don't know that there'll be a spot for it. I'm often giving brickbats to the commentary, the coverage of the game, and I just wanted to shout out, there was some really, I've watched the full replay of Fox, and then I've watched the half of the replay, which is on AFL.com, which is the 7 coverage, and both commentary was some really interesting stuff. Hawkins was the commentator on Fox, and his comments about Jeffo were really interesting, that weren't picked up in the other game, but he was commenting on the fact how well he competes in the air. But one of the things he pointed out was the mark that JVR took. He went back and kicked that goal. One of the goals JVR was made possible by the protection that Jefferson gave him in the contest to just bump Broad out of the way. I thought that was a really insightful comment from Hawkins. He was really bullish on both JVR and Jefferson. Have you watched a replay?
No.
Yeah, it was, and there's some really other interesting stuff too. Buckley talked about Melbourne. He was on that coverage as well, and really fascinating stuff. And Hill was the commentator. He was good, but Buckley was saying at the beginning of the game, talking about Melbourne, about how we're a forward half team, and I hadn't heard anyone talk about that much. We're territory team, and that will be key for this game. Something I probably missed a little bit in my preview, and that Tigers are too, and that it would be an end-to-end game. So it was some really interesting commentary, and I have to say some really good stuff from Pendlebury's special comments on 7. It was quite interesting because Hodge was asked. Hodge is, I just can't stand the commentator.
I'm with you on that one. All he does is tell you exactly what you've just seen in front of your own eyes, and that's the limit of it. He doesn't actually make any comments on the game.
Well, in this one, you'll laugh at this one, and the other thing is he's got a terrible voice for radio, for television or radio. He's got and he was asked by Brian Taylor, in simple terms, give me a short answer on why you think the Dees have improved so much under King. And his answer was bloody hopeless. For someone who's in the job as a special analyst or commentator, his answer was because they now believe in themselves. King has got them believing in themselves, and that's it. It's a simple game. Doesn't need to be more complex than that. And I'm sure, maybe that's a part of it, but come on. And Pendlebury, to his very everlasting credit, in a way that wasn't critical of Hodge, immediately said directly afterwards, but the thing that I really like about what King has introduced is the speed of ball movement. And just as it happened, just in that moment, we had yet another score from the back half, end to end. I'll get to it in the stats bowl bit. We put 70 points from our back half this season. I'm pretty sure that's a season high. 70 points from defensive half of the ground is unbelievably huge, given our score was 111. So well and truly over 50% of our score was from the defensive half. And in that bit of play, just as Pendlebury was saying it, we transitioned the ball down the ground to get that goal. I think it was the one that Melksham ended up giving off to Latrell. It was a beautiful bit of end-to-end ball movement, and that's the point that I would have liked Hodge to say is, of course, maybe they're believing himself, but that's all airy-fairy rubbish. The point is he's introduced a game plan that is very hard to counter, and when we're on, it is very hard to defend. And I think one of the other things that he's done that he's probably not getting the credit for, I'd be really interested in your insight on this. There's a question about this later. So, but I think he's really done a great job with our defensive unit. We're defending turnover super well at the moment, much better than we were at the beginning of the season. So, but apart from Hodge, I thought some of the commentary was really insightful, which is what you want to hear on the commentary. And it was a terrific performance in a lot of ways. I don't know if you weren't at the ground. If you were just watching that on telly, they didn't really mention as much on the Fox coverage. They certainly did on 7, but it was raining pretty much flat out and hard for all of that third quarter. So, I think we almost scored the same in the second half as we did in the first. And so it was, I thought our skills were pretty impressive given how wet it was. So you would have been, you were out in the wet, weren't you, where you sit?
Yeah, I had to move the seats because we're right at the front where we're based, but it hit right on the drip line and the
drip line.
Yeah, but it's not only the drip line; it's where the seagulls sit above as well. So you got to be careful. Yeah, but it really came down in that third quarter. And what was it was really impressive the way we handled it. There was a couple of interesting comments that King made about the back line is that it's too easy to forget that we didn't, in the first half of the season almost, we didn't have Bowie and Rivers in the back line, and their return has absolutely solidified that back line, particularly Bowie, the way he's playing. So, that's one of the good reasons why. But the other interesting thing about playing in the wet, King was asked about Fitzy as well. And he said, he knew that he would absolutely thrive in this environment, just tough, hard inside, and that's exactly what he got. So, good to see him. So maybe Fitzy's looking for more wet games, but having sat in the rain for that game, I wasn't all that keen about it from a weather perspective. But we still played good football.
It did, and we kept on going fast. We kept on moving the ball fast. So even that bit of play that I mentioned before when Pendlebury rightfully said the key thing that, and he went on to say that he's also built an athletic profile. He's made sure we're quick across the ground, and we've got multiple players who are quick. And in that chain, I don't know whether Sharp was involved in that bit of play, and Langdon, who, I don't know about you, he was on your wing for most of the game, I should say. He's a phenomenon. Like
he was amazing, absolutely amazing. I remember there was one section of play. I reckon he got 6 disposals by moving the ball from one end to the ground to the other. He got his first disposals in the back line, and then it was passed off to someone else, and then he ran and got it back, passed it off to someone else. It was just amazing to watch him. It's just a freak of nature and athleticism. Just amazing to watch.
you would have had front row seats, almost literally, to it, because he was basically on that wing for the entire ground. I don't know if he wasn't really playing wing. I don't even know where he plays now.
He plays somewhere between full back and full forward.
Yeah, exactly. And he's running. He's also that old-fashioned player like Williams, Diesel Williams used to be. You think he's not got many possessions, and suddenly halfway through the match he's on 20 or something. He just partly because what you're saying, he's involved in those link-up chains so much. But I'm so glad you touched on Bowie. He's been amazing. He's barely put a foot wrong. And that question, I watched the presser. Two things. I mean, King is such a good man manager, I reckon. He'd be a great person to work for because he deflected, he didn't sort of say anything negative about Bowie. He just agreed with the statement, but took the opportunity to pump up Rivers, who has been fans are doubting a little bit, but I thought he was excellent again in this game. It was a lot to like, but Bowie's goal was, critical bit of play. There's an interview. Have you seen that interview on MFC? He's the only player interviewed in the rooms after the game, and I really recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to listen to it because he's a smart young fella. And there were a couple of really interesting things. He was asked about his performance and in something that's a really good nod for, I guess, people who were ambivalent about the player ratings and impact. He was asked about, terrific effort with 30-odd disposals. I think he got something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
He said, I don't really care about how many disposals I get. I care about the impact of my disposals and the impact of my game. But he also said another interesting thing. He referenced the North game last year. Looking forward to the next week's game, he said, we owe him. We owe him for the towel up. And if I'll bet you King, I wouldn't mind betting King referenced it immediately post-game. But I bet if he's asked about it, he'll deflect and say, no, that's ancient history. We wouldn't do it. But it was just interesting that he would have just walked out. When he did that interview, he would have literally walked out of the post-match debrief. And one of the things in his mind was, that was round 3 or 4 last year, wasn't it?
Oh, too long ago for me.
Anyway, it was last season when they got a hold of us. So it was interesting that he referenced the fact that they got hold of us last year and we owe him one for that. So, terrific performance by him. The defensive unit we'll get to, but I just think they've just been terrific in the last 8 weeks, really, 7-8 weeks.
Excellent. And before all the Demon Land listeners call in, we forgot about Nathan Jones's 302 games for the club as well.
Good call.
Sorry, Jonesy.
Yeah, sorry. We're not doing this live tonight, so we can edit that out and change that. We haven't forgot you, Jonesy.
Okay. Just a couple of more questions, observations from our listeners about the game. D Future 15 asks, just an observation, Max's goal kicking. Has he been practicing, and is this the start of his future career as a part-time forward? Both kicks no hook and performed in the worst possible conditions. Lazy asks or says, we now have a footy team that you can back in to make a contest at the G in any weather. Is it maybe the best endorsement so far that despite the raining conditions, our constant movement and take the game on style yielded 63 points in the first half and 111 for the match? Additionally, don't you love it when Melbourne plays the G better than anyone else? Couple of nice comments, observations from the guys there, but we'll move on to the next section, which has Bin Man stats file. So over to you, Bin Man.
Just on that kicking, just on that Gorney's kicking, I think that's a great, really great point in terms of that second one was shorter distance. He really punched through it, didn't he? He still spins it, which I know you don't like, but he doesn't do it as much. Once he starts his run up, he stops spinning the ball in his hand, and he looks like he's kicking really through it. That first goal that he kicked, though, I loved it. Afterwards, he didn't celebrate at all. He looked angry that he didn't get the free kick. He ultimately got it, obviously, Nankervis. The other thing about that goal was that he ran Nankervis ragged because he was involved on the half-back flank immediately before that, ran the length of the ground. Nankervis had to go with him, and he was absolutely spent, which is why he gave up that free kick. I really rate Nankervis. I think he's a much underrated player. I really like him as a ruckman, and he's probably the only one that gets close to consistently, at least mismatching Maxi, I reckon. But that was a classic Maxi goal. And I totally agree. His goal kicking's been fantastic, and it makes him a weapon, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If he's kicking a goal every week or a couple of goals every fortnight, he makes him a weapon. And totally on Lazy's point, I was trying to remember, did we win 9 games at the G in a row under Goodwin at any stage? I can't even remember the last time we'd won 9 games at the MCG in a season in a row without losing any. Can you?
No, not off the hand. I think we can probably remember losing 9 games in a row.
Yeah.
But no.
I mean, it legitimately is our fortress. And the way we play it really wide. We really use that running power. I really don't think you can understand the way King's got his game plan without understanding it from running power. And interestingly, running power's now become the sort of phrase, the catch-all phrase to talk about fitness and running power. Buckley mentioned it about half dozen times, and it did make me. Buckley's commentary, I thought, was actually pretty insightful in the Fox coverage. Did make me wonder. I'm not sure about you whether he's sort of maybe regretting his decision not to put his hat in the ring because we're certainly humming, aren't we? But Maxi's performance, just on Maxi, I mean, I don't know. He's like we've talked about it ad infinitum, but he needs to get more love. Like I think I just can't believe the season he's putting together, and he's getting up there with the best player I've ever seen in footy. I mean, you would have seen maybe Lee Matthews a little bit more than me. I saw him at the end of his career, but I don't know. I can't think of a player more influential on the outcome of a footy match than Max has been in the last decade, probably, but the last 4 or 5 years
over a long period of time.
Extraordinary fitness. So, all right, jumping into the stats file. Let's have a look. I've just got to find my document here. So last week on the preview pod, I think I got it pretty much spot on. I have to say, as I said, I was sort of tossing up whether it would be, we'd be impacted by heavy blocker training ahead of the game. We were probably to an extent, but not to the extent that it really impacted our game style and ability to run out the game. We definitely reverted to our style of footy that we all fans loved in that first 5, 6, 7 rounds. We were back to that fast-flowing movement from the back half. We had 11 metres gained from handball last week, I think I said, which was our season low in very much a forward half game of footy. Extraordinary in this game, extraordinarily low last week. In this game, so 11 last week to 50, so it was only 60 handball metres gained in that match last week. And in this game, we're up above 500, which is our season average is 280 or some such, so 320. So well and truly back up on top of that for metres gained. So I'll just find that metres gained here. Handball metres gained was 542 to 240, so plus 303 for handball metres gained. Really back to our very best. Our season average is 368, so well and truly above our season average. And those handball metres gained, just as a reminder, isn't just the handball distance that the distance the ball travels after being handballed. It's also the distance that the players run after receiving before the next handball chain. So, which I think is important because it actually, if you described it that way, it really describes the game a bit better. And the best example, there's 2 really good examples of it, but the first goal that we scored, which is really, if you wanted to bottle and show someone how King wants us to play footy when we're playing like this, when we're moving it quickly from the half-back flank, is Sparrow puts really big pressure on, so you can watch all the games, but the very first goal we kicked, I think it was Sparrow puts pressure on Tigers player who misses his kick. CJ intercepts at the half-back flank, immediately, doesn't even hesitate. Behind him, if you watch the vision, Lever is yelling at him to go. You can see, so it's clearly go, right? This is within the first minute of the game, I think, from memory. He goes immediately, runs, carries the ball for 20, 30 metres, or if you say 15, 20 metres, kicks a beautiful kick, as it turned out, to Melksham, who spun. He almost, maybe there was a half a second delay before he spun and turned around and kicked it long to a one-on-one contest that JVR marked. That's, that's King ball at the best, of our fast ball movement. And that mark doesn't happen, or one-on-one opportunity doesn't happen without that speed off the halfback flank and CJ intercepting and going immediately. If you take a half beat, then everything slows down. Melksham maybe gets covered and someone gets back to help out on defence on JVR. So a really good example of the way King wants us playing. So in the preview pod, I said the keys to winning were, number one, win the contest and pressure. We did. We were +7 for contested possession, so probably not as big a win in that space as King would have hoped. We were, as contrast, we were +21 in round 7 against them, the Anzac Eve game for contested possessions. We were +13 for post-clearance contested possessions. I've mentioned this before, but Hardwick thinks that's the most important stat in footy. We were +10 for that in round 7, so +13 post-clearance contested possessions, +8 for post-clearance ground ball gets, about the same as round 7. In the round 7 game, we were only +3 for pressure, and that was inflated, 177 to 174, and that was inflated by being +14 in the last quarter. And we're also -6 for ground ball gets, but we've improved heaps with our ground ball gets, and we've been playing a lot more forward half footy and high pressure, high contest, which is really the key to all good footy teams. As I've mentioned, pressure and contest remains undefeated. But in this game, evidencing our improvement, we were +5 for ground ball get, so that's terrific. 11 turnaround. Another interesting stat for that last game was how many contested marks were taken. There were 27 in a total. For AFL average in a game is 18 across both teams. So in this game, we were amazing. Our contested marking was +12. 17 we took in this match was incredible given how wet it was, because as I said, it was legitimately wet for at least a full quarter. It was raining and then it was slippery for much of the day as well. So to take 17 marks is awesome. They only took 5, but that probably also evidences how improved our defence has been. Lever's been fantastic. Disco's been fantastic. I thought JVR, but also in particular Jeffo, were brilliant at bringing the ball to ground in the front half. We just wouldn't let them get their contested marking going. Team pressure was awesome. For first quarter, 209, 200's considered an elite. They were only 158. Uze would have been furious at quarter time with that, because they're all about the contest and pressure and territory. He would have been absolutely beside himself. They came out though in that second quarter, both teams, so it was 209 +51 would be easily one of our biggest differentials of the season. 158 to 157 in the second quarter. That's when it was raining in that quarter too, wasn't it?
Oh, there was
patches,
slight showers, but yeah, it really came down in that third.
Yeah, so that was really curious, and we played a bit more control in that quarter. So when you play control footy and kick the ball sort of around, the pressure drops. But that was a weird 209 in our first quarter, and we were 158, but they were only 157. So in the second quarter, they applied even less pressure. They must have got a massive rocket at half time, because their pressure was 183 in the third quarter. But super impressively, our pressure in the third quarter was 196. So we were +13 for pressure. That was important because they actually had their best quarter in that quarter. And if they kicked a bit straighter, they would have got within 20 with 6 points, 27. If they got the next goal, it would have gone to 20 points. And then, there might have been some nervousness about the joint. On that play that got it back out to 32 points, we transitioned the ball beautifully from end to end. In fact, it might have been the one that the bit of play that I was talking about that Pendlebury referenced, and it ended up with Jefferson taking a really nice mark and going back and kicking his slotting that goal, which I thought was it's super important actually, because it meant that we were back on top. But what was most impressive for me was the last quarter. Our last quarter, 204 pressure points in the last quarter to their 178. So they kept going to the end of the game. That was okay by them, but not as good as us. 204 +26. That tells me we were up and about. We were fit. It's not possible to apply that level of pressure without covering the ground, because it's all about that. All players providing defensive spread. And just had to watch Langdon, that amount of running and the pressure he applies just from his running. So for the match, we were +26, 195 to 169. We are not going to lose pretty much any game of footy if we're +26 for pressure. It is I think I have to drill down on this so I can be more certain on it, but I doubt, apart from the scoreboard, that there is a bigger correlation between winning and losing by significantly winning the pressure rating. Awesome. 204 in that last quarter was totally awesome. I mentioned just on that, I mentioned Bowie's post-match presser. Really worth listening to. One of the things I really like about King is that he's clearly a good communicator with his team, with his players, and a real strength of his is that communication. I really like it when, obviously for every coach has key messages coming into a game, and you can really hear that when there's key messages are clearly sort of given to the players, because they repeat those phrases that King mentions in the presser. So King, when asked about our performance at the top of his presser, one of the first things he mentioned is that what he was most happy with was a 4-quarter performance. And playing the game out for me then was obviously a key message for coming into this game by King. As I said, and King intimated as much in his post-match presser. Bowie, in his post-match interview, which is directly after, as I said, they've come out of that post-match debrief with the coach. When asked, he also said right at the top about the performance, he said that he loved how the team played out 4 quarters. Obviously, we didn't last week, so it's logical that they would have had a focus on it. But the important takeaway for me, at least, is they knew they'd be in good physical shape, that they would be able to run the game out, and they did clearly. We scored almost the same in the second half as we did in the first half, which is super impressive given how wet and slippery it was, particularly in that third quarter. So we looked like we were in great shape, running on top of the ground. I really reckon, look out, Roos, we're set for this, and I think we will be looking to completely run them off their feet. Another key I thought to win was winning the clearance and stoppage battle totals and scores from. Well, when I say I thought that would be key, I actually said in the preview that against the best teams, that's always critical, but I didn't think it would be critical at all in this match. And assuming we ticked off the other keys to winning, which we did, we'll win even if they match us in that space. And they did match us. So in this game, they were -6. We were -6 for total clearances. We're +4 for centre clearances, but around the ground clearances, we were -10. So that means they were +8 for clearances in the total clearances in this game, and so we're also +9 for scores from centre bounces. But around the ground stoppages or non-centre bounce stoppages, we were -18. So we only scored 10 points from stoppages around the ground. They scored 28, and that's. I just wanted to ask you whether you think that might be deliberate, because in the previous game we played them, we also didn't. We were only +9 for scores from around the ground stoppages when we last played at them, and that's our so hardly a mauling. And then they beat us in that space this time. And given we've got Maxi, and that's a total 1-wood for us, but not against the Tigers, it would seem. What's your read on that?
I mentioned this before the game. I think it's because the main drivers from the Richmond mids or around, to get the stoppages are the Prestias and the Tarantos and the Hoppers, who are very good at getting the ball, but they're not really great at using it. So I suspect it might have been, as a few coaches are doing this year with talented players, just let them run. They're not going to hurt you. So I think that's the case in this game. That at the end of this game, honestly, I didn't know that they were out there. In some cases, they get lots of statistics, but they're just not a factor in scoring, getting the ball to the other end. So we were happy to let them do it.
That might be. I mean, funnily enough, it might be a variation on what Goodwin used to do, which is basically allow the opposition to have an extra at the stoppage, sometimes 2 at the extra stoppage. And that's one of my frustrations with the coverage of the game. They should put a diagram up to work out where you can tell, like use a corner, how many they've got the stoppage. Because even live, it's hard to tell, particularly when you don't sit at the end of the ground. And so I wonder, Goody used to do that all the time, is often have 2 less at the stoppages, but have the extra in defence and smash them on turnover. And so perhaps, you're right in terms of he's a bit of a ball butcher, Taranto, although he had an excellent game and he is their second highest rated player this season behind Nankervis. So, but perhaps that's the reason, and that leads to this one. So one of the other keys to in the preview, I said the keys to winning for us is win the scores from turnover battle. Ooze said in his post-match presser last week that they were going to, no matter what, they were going to continue to play an attacking brand of footy this season. that means taking risks, and you've got some of your best players out. With those risks are going to turn into turnovers, and clangers will be inevitable. I mean, even the best teams still turn the ball over a third of the time. I thought ahead of the game, if we could punish those turnovers, would win the game. It's how it proved to be. We were plus 35 from scores from turnover in our round 7 Anzac Eve game. It was the deciding factor in that game, 59-34. We scored 68 points in this game from turnover. It was plus 25 for scores from turnover in the round 7 Anzac Eve game. In this game, it was plus 27 from turnover. So we smashed them on turnover, 68-31. It was a big factor, and maybe, as you say, that's part of the strategy, to give up the stoppage clearances, or risk losing the stoppage clearances, and put pressure on the kick that comes from that stoppage, and then smash them on it. So another key for us would be stress testing their defence. In their last game against the Blues took 17 marks inside 50 for the game and really stretched Richmond's defence and really got them spread wide on the G. King obviously would have reviewed that game, and I thought that on the wide expanses of our fortress, we would look to exploit that defensive weakness, and that I noted on the preview pod that if we successfully do that, look for high marks of numbers inside 50, and we 100% decidedly had high marks inside 50. We were plus 17 for marks inside 50. That is bananas, 22-5, and just terrific. That's not just to do with spreading them. That's a manifestation, or that's a sort of outcome of that scoring from the back half and our fantastic transition. We just smashed them on transition. I mentioned before, we scored 70 points from our defensive half. Few teams would have scored more than that all season. Maybe I'd be guessing there'd be 8-9 examples of a team scoring more than 70 points in a game of footy from the defensive half this season. It'd be Freo and Swans, maybe the Lions, not even the Lions, because they're not a high transition side. For context, our season average is 38.9, so almost double our season average for points from defensive half. That's what creates space inside 50 for your marks inside 50. Mind you, we took a bunch of contested marks inside 50 as well, so some excellent marking inside 50. I think Melk took at least one or two, JVR a handful, Jeffo took a handful too. So really impressive in that space. Where I think I'm right in saying we're either number 1 or number 2 in the AFL for contested marks this season, which is a huge turnaround in years gone past. I think they could only score 27 from their back half, and they tried. They were really trying hard to move the ball from their back half to get their run. They want to play that game too. So we're giving up 37.6 against us this season, so they could only manage 27, but that was extraordinary. 70 points from the defensive half was unbelievable. Finally, the don't give them a sniff was my final keys to winning, and I thought we did a great job of coming out where I said our pressure was north of 200 in that first quarter. We didn't give them a sniff. We never allowed them into the game, and I have to say that Melksham was a huge part of that, massive part of it, because he kicked 2 of the first 3 goals. He kicked 2 of the first 3 goals, kicked 2 of the first 4 goals, was the score assist for the first goal, which was the kick he hit to to JVR. That was set up by him, and he was score involvement in the other 2. So the first 4 goals we kicked, which really, was important to not give them a sniff. He either kicked them himself. One was an assist, and he was involved in the scoring involvement chain for the 4th goal. So hugely important in that first 10 minutes. And I thought that was key to us winning the game and not being a stressful game for the team. I mentioned that I missed a trick on the importance of territory, given that it's such an important factor for us as a team, but it's super important for them as a team. That was pointed out by Buckley pre-game. Not that I missed a trick, but that both teams were forward half teams, and we smashed them in that space, so 59.1, so 60-40 basically. In particular, the first quarter. Finally, our top-rated player, Tom Sparrow, 19.5. Van Rooyen had another top game of footy, AFL footy, 3rd in a row, 18.9, coming off his best game of footy last week ever, I think. Maxi Gawn, just an average game for him, 17.1 in this match, 3rd highest rated player. Jack Steele, he's our 4th rated highest rated player for the season. He was our fourth in this game. What a pickup. And Jake Bowie, so fantastic you mentioned him. He rounded out a top 5, 15.8. Jack Lever, 14.8. And Cozzy had for him, a so-so game, 13. But I reckon I don't know what you think. He seems to be carrying something to my eye. He's not going in as ballistically as he was in the first third of the season. But having said that, his first three quarters were unbelievable: 4.9, 4.2, and 3.9. He was really important in that first half, but I don't know. Do you get a sense that he's not fully...
Definitely get the feeling that he's just not quite right at the moment. There's something being carried like something like a rib or something like that.
That's what it looks like.
He's just not going in as hard at contests. I mean, he's still brilliant when he gets it on the outside. But the physical aspect isn't as hard and as tough as what we've come to expect from him. And mind you, that mark was pretty damn good.
Yeah, it was, and I was sitting on basically almost the dead wing on the Olympic stand, isn't it? And looking down, and I called out Colby, probably me and every other Melbourne fan, because you could see
it coming.
And you got to ask defensively. You don't leave him out the back of a contest like that. And he seems to have lost his rhythm a bit on his set shot. Like, he's a beautiful set shot normally. He just seems to be a little bit proppy. I don't know. And there was a post of apologies, I can't recall who noted that they saw him on the bench all in the last quarter, all wrapped up with blankets and sucking on a glucose thingo. And someone else replied to that saying they heard him coughing on the way down. So some interesting insight there. So maybe he's also had a flu, but it feels like he isn't physically. He might be carrying something, because there were a couple which was so un-Cozzy where he allowed someone else to go get the ball and where he didn't tackle where he otherwise would. But some of his kicking was amazing in this game. Like, just some of his lateral kicking is just incredible, and joy to watch when he's up and about, isn't he?
The other good thing is we're winning games without him, absolutely dominating, like we saw in the first half of the season. Certainly, he won a couple of games basically off his own foot. But we're winning games now without Cozzy being completely dominating, particularly against a low-level team like Richmond. Where you could expect him to absolutely run riot, but he's just taken a little step back.
But to be honest, he's a bit of a victim of his own high standards, because a game of, a rating of 13 is nothing to sniff at. And we talked about how brilliant Langdon was, for instance. Because he had a higher rating than Langdon, he had a higher rating player than Kate Chandler, actually, who Kate Chandler had his lowest rated game. That was his lowest rated game for some time. Harvey Langford as well. So, CJ, I pumped up, thought he had a good game. He was excellent. But this is one of the reasons I like the rating. CJ's rating was only 7.5. So, Cozzy up around the 13s, a bloody good game of AFL footy. He was our seventh rated highest player. So it's still a pretty good game of footy, but he's just such a gun that we're so used to seeing him dominate, aren't we?
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to the listener questions. We've got a whole series this week around all sorts of bits and pieces, particularly about individuals. First one, we'll do a bit of navel gazing for a start, comes from Buck Naked. Don't know how far we will go, but believe now that we can beat anyone. We can also lose to many teams. How are you gentlemen assessing the run home from here, and where would you like to finish, realistically, to start an unexpected finals campaign? Over to you for a start, Bin Man.
How about you go first, George, because I skew optimistic on this front. But
It's looking into crystal balls isn't my game. I thought you, being the gambler man, would be more attuned to this. Look, honestly, I think to be of any chance realistically in any final series, I mean, we've all been surprised at where we are at the moment. Even King, I think, mentioned in his presser, because he was asked about this. He said no one's talking about the F word at the moment, and the F word is finals.
I'm glad it was finals.
Yeah. And he admitted he didn't think we would trouble. People thought, and he didn't think we'd trouble the scorers this year.
Oh no, he didn't say that. But he thought.
But he was impressed by what we could achieve, and we certainly have achieved that. and the message that it came is that we can't listen to the external noise that goes on about this, but everybody's involved with that in any case. Realistically, I think we've got to look at top six for finals. We're definitely going to play some sort of finals. It will, I suspect, depend a lot on what will happen when we play against Geelong in 2 weeks' time. Geelong looked really pathetic against GWS on the weekend. They had a really solid lead, and all of a sudden they really looked old again. That I suspect Dangerfield, for example, only played about a minute in the last quarter, despite the fact that he was on the ground, but he just wasn't involved at all. And Cameron now taken out, although Cameron hasn't been playing good footy in the last couple of weeks, but he'll be out for a while. They lost Tanner Bruin as well, so they were down to 2 on the bench. But the Giants absolutely ran over them in the last quarter. They had no reason to win that game.
And I suspect, on that, George, they've been running out of legs for the last 5-6 weeks. Absolutely have.
Yeah, I think they've lost 5 of the last 6 games.
Yeah.
And given where they are currently on the ladder because of their previous wins, I think a lot of our season will depend on the outcome of that game. We win that game, we'll definitely finish top 6. We lose that game, we're back in the pack again. We've still got games. We've got games against Freo to come up. The Suns are looking pretty awful at the moment. Hopefully North this weekend will take care of. So we're somewhere around that mark, which you have to be. Brisbane and Freo are certainly out ahead of the rest of the pack. But we're in the mix at the moment, and that's more than what we all thought, perhaps.
And it won't surprise you to know that I have done a drill down on our chances going forward, and I it's a poisoned chalice, Demon Stone, if you happen to be listening, not a poison chalice. But finishing 4th is potentially a poisoned chalice because no team in 25 years, in fact, I don't think ever under this final system has won a grand final from 4th, which is really, that's a big enough statistical sample to say that it's more than an anomaly. And, my logic would be that first plays 4th. 4th, there's often a really big gap in performance level between the team that finishes 1st and 4th. Often the team that finished 4th scrapes into that 4th position. It's often a interstate game, and it certainly will be this year. It'll be Fremantle. So if we were to finish 4th, we play Fremantle in Fremantle and have to travel back and then play, not necessarily at a home ground, potentially another interstate game. Brisbane are in there, obviously, and so are the Swans. So it's, I think, no team winning from 4th. Those sorts of stats will be thrown asunder a little bit, I think, with the wildcard. I don't think anyone's really starting to get or talking about how significant a change to the finals system the wildcard round will be. So there's an argument to be made that it's actually better for us to finish 5th than 4th. We're not. I did the ladder predictor a number of different times. With us losing the game to Geelong, we still, with a chance we finish 4th, depending what Geelong do. We're locked for top 6. So in terms of the betting odds, and that now there's enough money in this particular pool. This is this is as good as any in terms of prediction. Melbourne are $2, so it's even money to make the top 6. Geelong are $2.10. We're $1 unbackable to make the top 10. So we've locked in that. He was asked about that, wasn't he? He was asked about locking in that. That's his answer to that was pretty funny. But we're even money to make top 6. To top 4, we're $7.50. So we're not miles off. We're the 4th favourite to make top 4. It's Hawthorn, Fremantle. We can't back on them, so we're 5th favourite behind. 6th because Sydney aren't in there either. You can't put any, because obviously they've locked it up, I think. I'm guessing they're probably both locked it up, so they're not taking bets on it anymore. So even money to make top 6 is, about where it should be. We've got, this game is huge coming up, massive game for us, North Melbourne. We've not got the best record at Marvel. I don't think that ground suits the way King likes us to play because, we really use the width at our fortress at the G. Obviously there isn't much width at Docklands. then the Cats, you're right, that's going to be just a killer game Friday night. And thanks AFL, by the way. So we get 6 games, 6 days into the North game on Saturday. The Roos get 8. We play the Cats, who I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying they've either got 7 or 8 days into that game too. We've got 6 days again. So that's a Friday night. So back-to-back 6-day breaks, which is just infuriating. It is so infuriating. Someone on Demonland wrote that, I hadn't seen the post, I'll check it out, but Willow Ratings put a post in saying that it's basically the most number ever of 6-day breaks when the opponent has 7 or 8 or some such. So look, to be perfectly blunt, we've been shafted by the AFL this year with the fixturing, and on top of that, of course, our bye not till round 16. So then we got the Suns, who have fallen off a cliff. Their own coach has said that they haven't got a chance. How furious would you be? Would I be? Would every Melbourne fan be? Dean Lamb would go in meltdown if Goodwin had said at this point of the season last year, we've not any chance of finishing. Well, we didn't have a wild card last year, and then we've got Freo at the G. It's our fortress, remarkably, and then Port and Bulldogs. So really, if we win 4 of them, we're top 6 lock, and I'd be happy with 5th or 6th. We play the bonus of finishing 5th under this new system, as I talked about a few weeks ago, is you get a week's break and you play against a team who's coming through the wildcard ground. So the elimination final suddenly becomes akin to the benefit of a prelim almost, because if we finish 6th, we play a team who has a cutthroat game the previous week, and it'll be at the MCG. So 5th or 6th is absolute critical if we've got any chances. And who knows? Who knows from there? Freo haven't had any injuries, and I note they had a couple on the weekend. They've had no injuries whatsoever. Cats have really been hurt by injuries. Day is still being managed for Hawks. Watson's got his hamstring issues. So you just never know. And Freo, if they cop some injuries, then they won't be the team, just as we're coming good with the injuries. So, we're going to have pretty close to our best 23 available by Myercheck and Viney in the next couple of weeks. Oh, Lindsay, doesn't look like Lindsay.
No, he probably won't play again this season. And Cully, of course, is.
Yeah, Cully, of course. So, 3 or 4 of our best 23 out. None, with all due respects to that, to Viney, probably none in our top 10 anymore, you wouldn't think, would you? So, no. But, they only have to cop a couple of injuries, and they'll Jackson, Sarong.
Jackson went down or exactly. Tracy went down.
Or Tracy goes down, and they look completely different. And the other thing in that last, so we finish off with, it depends a little bit, I guess, whether the Dogs are still in the hunt. But if they're still in the hunt for top 10, that will be a critical game, but it's at the G. But the Port Adelaide game is going to be a critical one because they're always tough to travel there, but it doesn't look like, unfortunately, Butters will be playing, unfortunately for them, and Butters, fortunately for us.
No Butters, no Rosie.
But they've been terrific this year, actually.
Yeah, they've held up despite all that.
Yeah, exactly.
So remarkable.
I think realistically, I almost prefer not to finish top 4. We're a chance to finish top 4. Probably won't get there because of our percentage is not quite good enough. So 5th or 6th looks, I think, more likely than not. As I said, the betting odds are even money. So put $1 on, you get $1 back. Even money to finish top 6 is pretty good by my book at this part of the season.
Okay, moving on with the questions. We're sort of given this a subtitle of Best 23 while we talk about Melcham, Salem and Jeffo. Travi14 asks, Jeffo is going to be fine, kicking needs work and a big off-season in the gym, but is he a proper forward with craft? Do you guys agree? Garbo then asks a series of questions. As we enter the final phase of the year, just wonder where you see our best 23. I have a few thoughts below. I feel like we can no longer afford to play or risk JVR in the ruck anymore, which means we have to play a second ruck each week, as there seems to be no plans to play Petty or Jeffo in there. AJ is a non-starter for me. He just had 1 hit out from 20 contests. Where does Salem fit into this side? Melcham has to keep his spot. He's just so smart and doesn't waste chances. His mark out the back by staying down and assist over to Latrell was chef's kiss. What is Windsor's role now? I like the run and carry he gave in the middle before his injury, and he seems to have recovered now, judging by his goal from 50. But Fitzgerald seems to have taken his spot and doesn't look like giving it up anytime soon. Windsor on the wing, let the boy run. Up and under, under and in and under. Jeffo is what JVR was last year. A lot of people wanted him gone. He is on the brink. Salem, how will he make the team better or faster than we currently are? I don't think he gets back in, unfortunately, unless it's Laurie. For Viney, Reed, Salem. Fritsch and Petty are back this week, we hope. Finally, D.L. Fard asks, it would be very harsh to drop Melky after such a solid game, both with and without the ball. So who comes out for Fritter? I noted that Salo played the first half at Casey and did okay coming off a long injury break. He will obviously need a couple more games at Casey to regain match conditioning, but is there a place for him in our future lineup as the defensive small forward? I can't see him pushing out our small defenders or wingers based on their current form. So, Bin Man, a lot of questions around individuals there. Melky, Jeffo, who else have we got? Windsor, Salem, yeah. So
yeah.
Pick one or two or three. Off you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, George. I dislike the sort of, as I've mentioned, always referencing everything in comparison to Goody and the way he went about it. But they do have a bit of a philosophical difference. King seems very much influenced by Chris Scott's sort of much more preparedness to look at the team as a squad and play players. So I don't think it's going back, for instance, Cross going back. I don't think that's like there's no sense of lines drawn through his name. I really think there's a core group of players, maybe of 15, 16 players that are absolutely always going to play, maybe 17. But then there's some players that will horses for courses, and I think Melsham's one of them. Look, I think I put a question up for us is I'll certainly put my hand up and eat some humble pie. I didn't think Melk would play again after his last game. I even got his games wrong that he played. So he was fantastic in this game, particularly, as I said, it was so important that we took the energy out of the Tigers and the Tigers fan early. He was critical in that first 20 minutes. Shout out to Dee, I think it's Dee for Life on Demonland, who said that they're on 3 days out from the game that that's what would happen, that Petty would be out with hamstring awareness and be replaced by Melk. So I said if I was a betting man that I would say bollocks to that, and I was proven to be 100% wrong and it was inspired. So I think he will be a bit of a horses for courses. I don't think there is a lock. There's 5 or 6 players who aren't any lock. So, I think Petty is a lock. He comes back in. There's no question about that. Frid is a lock. He comes back in. So I think Melk will probably come out. Maybe Pet's not this week, in which case you could run with Melksham again. And on it's the less expansive ground on Docklands, Melksham, loves those conditions, I think. So, I certainly won't. The last time I'm going to write him off. So I got that completely wrong. Horses for courses. Fritter will come back in. Maybe Melksham comes out but no slight on Melksham, I have to say. So the one that I think is a really big chance of happening is I actually disagree that Salem will necessarily play 2 or 3 more games in the Resis. I think there's a chance he'll come in this week, if not this next week. And my feeling is it's really fascinating, and there's been some chatter about this on Demonland, both in the excellent, you included, big shout out to all of the track watchers, just such quality information. I don't say that enough, just in terms of what's happening. One of which he was trialled at in the match sim ahead of this game against Casey on the half-forward flank, and that's where he played. He played at half-forward flank for Casey, and so I suspect there's a really good chance he'll come in as a half-forward flanker and play the Brian Myers role, which is exactly the role at the moment that Laurie's playing. He's playing almost the traditional half-forward flanker, so not like the high half-forward. Windsor's, interestingly, playing the high half-forward, where there's a question about him in a sec. But he's more of a stay-at-home half-forward flanker who looks for that sort of kick that he hit up JBR. That's what Laurie's in the team for. He's an excellent kick. Those you would think at AFL level every AFL player could hit that 20-30 metre kick. I'm amazed how few players can do so regularly, both to have the vision to do it and then execution. So I see Laurie playing that role, and Salem, when he's ready, either this week or next week, basically being a like-for-like like swap for Laurie. Laurie has played 70% game time the last 2 weeks. So I reckon from a system and structural point of view, that's a really clever thing by King. And I can see Salem coming in exactly taking that role, playing 65, 70% game time, being an impact player, playing that Brian Myers role who can kick across the line on the 45. And I can really, and then if he does get another injury like Salo, then you've got Laurie being able to slot straight back into that spot. So no disruption to the system at all. Frid is definitely best 23. So the big question for me is that ruck question. I'd be really interested in your insight on that. AJ was awesome. I thought his effort was awesome. I love the fact he was picked because I wanted him to smash into, this sounds pretty old school, Boulder. Yeah, because Boulder needed some payback from smashing into Maxi in round 7. And he was pretty, he did barely played, it felt like, but the other one was Lynch barely, he shouldn't have been out there, he couldn't bend down. I'll be fascinated. It looks like the Heath experiment maybe isn't going to fly. Maybe they figure Maxi's just too good to be taken off the ground. I don't know. I agree with that sort of idea of JVR. I like him not rucking. So do you, I think. But I think Petty can ruck. I think Petty's shown that he can ruck. I don't know. What do you think about all of that?
Yeah, pretty well agree with all that. I think Frida comes back in, and King in his press conference said Frida will be back this week. Petty, they obviously held out. They said that he had the awareness, and on the day of the match, I think they were still testing him, but because it was wet, they just weren't going to risk him because that's how you really do the hamstring on a wet, slippery type of ground. So they held him off. So I suspect he will come in as well. Milk, even though he kicked a couple of goals, he disappeared in the second half. He really wasn't there, and the knock on him is he just has. The body just won't do what he wants to do. So Frida in for Milk. Interesting one is Salem. Again, he was mentioned in King's presser where he said he's probably going to spend a couple of weeks at Casey.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, which is not surprising because Salem hasn't been even able to run up until sort of 3 weeks ago. He's back and he played. I wasn't sure because in the Casey game, I watched the replay. I suspect he only played a quarter and a half. I think he was off for 15 minutes in the first quarter, and then he was definitely off in the second half. So he's got a lot of building up to do. But the important thing, as you noted, is he played half forward and even a little bit in the mid. So ordinarily you'd be putting him in the back line because certainly Casey needs backman, but they were deliberately playing him in the forward line. So I think the other thing that they're thinking about, this is King with his options and putting people in different places, is that if Salem came back tomorrow, who would you replace in the back line?
That's right.
There's no one. Isn't a slot for him.
No. Totally agree.
So
Colt's become a really important player down there. Like we didn't even mention him today. We mentioned Lever, mentioned Disco, who was awesome. But Colt's so reliable. And the other player that we haven't mentioned, there's a question about this as well. So but Howes as well. So you're 100% right. Like who would come out? Rivers is in good form.
CJ's in good form. Yeah. And as we've alluded, when you're depending on intercept and run out of the half back line. Well, Salem's a great kick, but he's not a runner by any stretch.
He's lost his acceleration off.
So what better place to put him than at the half forward line where he can deliver accurately to others around. That's all
you need to do. Like, and if he plays 70% game time like Laurie, and he does 5-6 assists a game and sets up goals with his kicking skill and experience, I think that. And I think I'm right in saying I read this on Deemerland. I can't recall this. So you probably will. Salem played junior footy as a forward. Was he a forward? As a junior?
I don't know.
I got a feeling I read on Demonland that he was a junior. He was forward as a junior, so it'd be a bit of full circle from that perspective. And as a forward, I mean, the beauty of being a forward is that your mistakes unless you turn it over and you blatant, chunk out on the full or whatever. But in defence, your mistakes are magnified, aren't they? So you turn
everybody
the ball over
notices
back
that.
there, or you get run off, or so 65-70% game time, he could be, real icing on the cake down there. And I think with 5 on the bench, we've hardly talked about that on the podcast this year. It's sort of, I haven't heard much in the media about how much it's changed the game, but it means, like you pointed out in round 1 or 2, that you can have a player at 70%. I don't think Fitzgerald, what did you say? He was 70% as well.
He was 70%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The final one, Max Heath, he was listed as test with a shoulder last week. He only did really running at last week's training session, and he didn't play at Casey this week. So I think the Max Heath experiment is in abeyance at the moment, and that's why we're depending on AJ to fill the role. But it'll be interesting when Petty comes back, whether Petty fills that second ruck role.
I agree. I mean, as much as JVR does a good job when he goes into the ruck, but he's built his tank up and he works hard, doesn't he? And so you really want him using up his tickets. And we are now in that premiership window. This is the exciting phase of the season for me and for all teams, because I've talked about this every year, but there are so many anomalous results, and they're to do with the high performance program of each team. And Geelong are part of that. That's part of their sort of dip in the last 5-6 weeks. There's no doubt it's to do with their high performance sort of timing, but they are an aging side. But now we're getting to the thing where all teams have done it, and we are too. We're in the so-called, the David King likes to say the premiership runway, or the finals runway, and where you start to lock in your best 23. So it's a really good question about what that looks like. But I do think King is horses for courses, and the benefit of having that approach all season, which I think is a great approach, to be honest, means that when a player like Laurie, who might come out for Salem, he won't get his nose out of joint. It's not like he's not going to get another chance, and he may well if Salem gets injured. Similarly with AJ, the line. I would have, if I was asked, guessed maybe AJ may not play again. Who knows? But he's given a chance, given a role, and was terrific. His effort was terrific in this game.
Yeah.
He's certainly wouldn't want to be tackled by him in a dark alley. That's for sure.
No, there's no question about whether he's going to tackle you or not.
Just before we go on, there was a stat I wanted to highlight that I thought was amazing. It was nuts. So it just jumped off the page for me. In quarter by quarter differential, in the first quarter, we were +8 for disposals, but +10 for clangers, which is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. We were +10 for clangers. We were +8 for disposals. In the second quarter, we were +56 for disposals. So a lot of them were handballs, but that is a huge differential. But we were -1 for clangers. So that is an amazing change. So we I don't know how many more disposals. I haven't got those numbers, but +56 for disposals and -1 for clangers, and then +23 for disposals in the last quarter and -5 for clangers. So
I think it was nearly 100 differential in disposals, wasn't it, at the end of the game?
In this game, which is amazing for us. A lot of them were handball. I didn't see the thing. So, we really cleaned up our kicking. And given how wet it was amazing. Our disposal, our kicking efficiency was only 64.7. It's a bit below where our season average. But our kick into forward 50 retention was the one that most Dees fans would love, because it was 55.6% of the time we kicked inside 50, we retained the footy. They were only 28.9% of the time. So our season average is 48%. So well above that, which is super impressive given the conditions, I thought. But we actually had 5 more clangers than for the game, which is kind of curious. So, a lot of them were in that first quarter. We must have butchered the ball a lot more than I thought we did watching the game live.
Okay, just some general discussion now about improved players. When teams go up a level from the previous season, a big factor is multiple players improving their game. Do you think that's true for us this year? And if so, which players have improved? Monocular offers a couple for us to consider. JVR, consistently developing and powerful marking. Disco never lets go. Colt, annoying pest getting under every opponent's skin. Jeffo just starting to fit in with forward craft. Howe's so secure and precise. Sharp, bobs up everywhere. Spaz now in his element in the midfield. That's just 7 with huge progress, and most others at least at their previous best. The whole team is gelling. So, Binners, who are our improvers for this year?
I think all of them are definitely, I agree with all of them. I think in terms of the important ones, one's missed in that list, I think has been absolutely critical is Chandler. He's our third highest rated player this season. He's been amazing. He's been incredible. So much so in this game watching live, I suddenly thought, geez, he hasn't been as influential. And, I wouldn't have thought that 2 years ago. You would just say he's had a down game. But but that bit of play where he kicked it down, I thought there was a beautiful bit of football that was, again, showing that how far we've improved as a team. Like, the communication was awesome. So we moved it quickly through the half-back flank. It was the one where Latrell did that beautiful run along the boundary, and everyone's heart was in their mouth, no doubt. He handballed inboard, I can't recall, maybe it was Melksham. Melksham went into the corridor to Chin. Chin could have gone left and jinked to the right, and he's a left footer, so the Tigers player covered off the left-hand side, but he went to the right and ran diagonally towards the sort of goals or the point post and kicked it long to ultimately JVR in space. But what I loved about, one, the ball movement, two, the clever way that Chin jinked to the right, three, how well he kicked that ball. It was his kicking is elite. Like, he is really damaging with a footy. The other thing, I was watching it, obviously live, had it on the binoculars, and what I really liked was the forward craft from Jeffo. He took the lead. He immediately led. JVR delayed his lead, and then JVR led when he was just about to kick it. What I loved is that Jeffo could have easily said that's my ball, but left it for JVR. They could have raffled it, those two, but the communication was just terrific. And I think it takes time for synergy to build in the forward line and the defensive unit. But so it's not just they're improving as players, they're improving as a team that play together. I thought that was a beautiful bit of footy and really great IQ by Chin, because he could have just gone to the hotspot. It would have been a 2-on-2 at the hotspot, but he delayed it a bit and allowed his forwards to run into space, and they communicated really well. Of that list, the one for me is really gone under the radar for a lot of people is Howe's. Howe's is so consistently good down back and exactly so secure and precise, but he's reliable. Colt, I think he has been super important. He's no longer just a tagger back there, but he's got that ability. He's super competitive when he makes a mistake. I didn't see that hit Lynch did on him, but it sounded...
Yeah, it was behind the play as usual with Lynch. It was.
And Colt got up, and I love the way he went about. Like, he didn't get aggro. Like last year, I was worried about his headspace, that he could get rattled. He just put his energy into the play. Disco, I think, is he's an All-Australian almost, I think, level. He is unbelievable. That mark he took, I saw him running towards the contest. It was right below me. He was never going to get that, not get that footy, but he was miles off it, like when he ran at it. So I think I agree with all of them. I think the ones I'd highlight apart from Howe's is Sparrow. He's not, when I talked about pressure, he was our highest rated pressure player in this game. He's our highest pressure rated player for the season. So he's always been like that, but he's added an extra string to his bow. 2 kicks he set up direct from assist. They might have both been to JVR, but the second one was magnificent. It was a centre clearance cut across his body to JVR, 1-on-1 to JVR, to Roo's advantage. He's been amazing, I think. I hope we can keep him. I don't know. Do you know anything about that stuff?
No, I haven't heard anything. And it was again referred to in King's presser. And he played a completely dead bat, rightly so. But he is critical to our future now because having lost Oliver and Petrarca, we wondered who in the hell is going to fill the gaps. Well, fortunately, St Kilda donated Steele to us. But the way that Sparrow and Chandler have taken up the space available that was created by that has just been amazing. But so we really can't afford to lose Sparrow in the future. Fine, he's probably getting close to the end of his years with the club, and I don't think he actually would fit in as well with the midfield as what he used to. Different style of player and the way the game's played these days.
And not a good enough kick. That's really
yeah. Yeah,
And
so keeping Sparrow is critical to not just for this year, but for the future years as well.
totally agree. And I mean, I could see him being captain because he plays like a captain. He's an excellent kick. He's an excellent field kick, but he's also an excellent kick for goal. He gets good depths on his kick. He's been amazing. The other players I'd highlight is Maxi. I feel like he's having his best season in a long time. He's been amazing. But Cozzy's gone from a really excellent player to one of the best players in the AFL and went on arguably the most watchable player in the game and is incredibly influential in big games. It felt like yesterday, I think he is carrying something. Again, let's say he's also crook. But for me, he's a big game player who wants to stand up and influence big games. He did the damage in the first half and then dropped into third gear and cruised for the rest of the match. That's how it felt like watching it for me. And Sharp, I don't know that I think he's improved heaps, but he's just got more game time and his running capacity and his powerful running just suits King's game plan down to a T. So, I totally agree with the notion that we've, a lot of players have taken another leap up. JVR, just on him, like we've talked about this for years now, is player, and Hawkins mentioned this. Hawkins was really good in the commentary on Fox. He mentioned that basically, look, you've just got to give key forwards time. It's ridiculous. But on JVR, he has lost 7 kilos. There was a poster, JJJ, who said that his intel was that Goodwin asked him to bulk up last year so he could be the down-the-line marking content player. He's lost 7 kilos from last year, but he's also another year older. He's 24. He's coming in. He won't hit his peak as a key forward to 25. So look out. I think he's done something with his marking. He's not running under the ball as much.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And he now, particularly with Myercheck, I was really worried with Myercheck going down that would derail our season a little bit. He's stepped up since then, and he's really been a formidable player. He's clearly worked on his tank. That mark he took running out to the forward pocket at the City Road end, he just bowled it. He had to run so hard to get to that, and he couldn't have done that last year, I don't think.
I think the other improvement that we've seen across a number of players is they've actually found roles.
Yeah,
even Cozzy, was a bit of a forward. Rarely was being used into the mid. We all knew that he would eventually finish up there, but he's almost exclusively mid now. Disco was a bit of forward, a bit of back. He's absolutely cemented a place down in the back line. Yeah, so. Colt's another one who was, somewhere between half forward, half back, and he is a permanent, in that area now. So JVR, again was being used a bit of this, a bit of that as ruck come forward. He's cemented a role at full forward now. So giving these players sort of permanent positions, and then Chandler and Sparrow that we've talked about having a role that they were. On the interchange bench because you couldn't get ahead of Petrarca, Oliver, and Viney last year. All of a sudden, they're the primary go-to players in the middle. So, it's been a dramatic change, big improvements. It's been very nice to look.
I agree, and I think the point you made early in the season, and you made it earlier, is a really good one about Kings likes players playing in multiple roles and flexibility. I think that's got to help as well. So, yes, I agree with what you're saying about the importance of players having to find roles, but also when they're asked to play other roles, it's not a shock to the system and that they can play other roles. I mean, the great example of that is Langdon. Langdon's having his best season for a while, I reckon, and he's essentially playing as a half-forward flanker, or I'm not quite sure, he's not really playing as a winger because you've got he may have in this game, actually. It's a little bit hard to tell. But just on Disco, by the way, one of my favourite bits in the game, they showed it on the telly, on the big screen, but you get a much better view of it, of course, on the television, is I don't know what the guys who kicked it. The goal that they kicked where he kicked it off the ground and it was just on the goal line. It was, I forget, is it Lafau? Lafau kicked a sort of grubber in board. It was a bloody lucky goal and it ended up with a young Tiger, number 10 maybe. Anyway, he kicked the goal and Disco was valiantly trying to spoil it and couldn't get to it and was on the ground. And the Tigers player, young player, gave it to him verbal. You could standing over, you watch that goal, he's standing over him giving him a verbal. Disco gets up and they showed it on the big screen, but again, on the coverage, you can see it much better. And he was right into him. And I thought the same thing. listen, kid. And I just love that from Disco. You could guess what he was saying. He's, listen, kid, we're thumping you. You guys are 17th on the ladder. Pull your bloody head in. But he's got something about him, Disco, and he reads the ball so well. And I love something he does that I always wonder why more defenders don't do it, is when he can mark it, he goes for it. He doesn't thump it away. He takes that mark. And in this game, sorry, I just hit my microphone there. In this game, our defensive work was fantastic. We were plus 11 for intercepts and plus 9 for intercept marks, plus 20 for tackles, by the way. So our defensive work was just awesome. We had 18 tackles inside 50, so plus 12 for tackles inside 50. We only lost 22.2% of our defensive one-on-ones. They lost 40% of theirs. So, yeah, I wouldn't be giving Disco yap if I was that Young Tigers player.
Finally, just a question around the defensive unit. Our defensive unit seems to be humming. What's your take on the defensive unit, and what are they doing well and or better, and who are the key players?
This was a question from me to you, George.
Yeah, we're filling these in. I think we've talked about this a little bit as we've moved through the players. And again, just going back to what King said, don't underestimate the return of Bowie and Rivers into the back line. That's really cemented what we've got there in the first place, but also with Colt, again, also cementing his position down there. There's no question about where he's going to play. Bowie's been just superb since he's come back, and the way that he plays. Lever's playing the best for the last 2 years. He was obviously carrying an injury last year and was out for a considerable amount of time. But even for him, having people like Howes and having people like Disco around means that he can play his own game instead of having to cover for lack of players. I think the other thing, and perhaps this is a little bit about what we're alluding to in the midfield, is not having Stephen May down there means that these guys have been able to step up into the roles that they wouldn't have otherwise been asked to do. The fact that we, Tommy Mack's been relegated to Casey tells you a lot that we've already got the right players sitting in the spot at the moment, and we don't need someone who's obviously approaching the end of his career. But yeah, it's been about solidifying the right players coming back in at the right time, and hopefully injuries don't happen to us, because they're looking pretty damn solid at the moment against any sort of opposition.
Yeah, that's a great summary, George. I'd just reinforce your comment about Lever. He looked in great physical nick. He looks as good as I've seen him for 3-4 years. He's running across the ground. To my eyes, he looks a bit better one-on-one than he's been over his career. I think that's a fantastic point about Steve May, and this is no knock on Steve May. I love him. Love him as a player. Loved him, what he brought to the club. He didn't fit, I don't think, in King's game plan, because he's in the last couple of seasons, he just wasn't fast enough, and that's similar to Tommy Mack. But again, horses for courses. I mean, the brilliant thing about King's approach to selection and the way he's used players is it'd be no shock if Tommy Mack did come back in if need be, and he wouldn't miss a beat. He's such a pro, but his leg speed is a bit of a worry. And there was a discussion on Demonland I thought was interesting, and we're going to need another key defender, and so someone's got to come back, and the talk on that thread was, well, that's CJ. I just don't think that's right. I think basically the way King has set it up is that this is the 7 that we've got down there is the 7 that we're going to play with, hopefully, for the rest of the season. We'll take our chances if an opposition has 3 key tools that we have to cover. We come across, we provide cover. The thing I've loved watching is one of the things I most love about the Goodwin era was just the synergy of the defensive unit. When they were at their very best, it was like they just knew where each other was at any given time. They could do feed those handballs out the back, knowing that the player would be there. It feels like that's where we're getting to. I mean, we were giving up around 10 north of 100 points a game. It's down to 91 points now, or 90 points. That's massive. In 7 or 8 games, we're giving up 10 points less a game now. Part of that's to do with the mid-season drop-off in scoring happens across the competition, but they are just they're getting to that stage that you could see when under Goodwin, when it's just intuitive, where they play almost like the what is that saying? The sum is greater than the or something rather.
The individual parts. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It just looks like there is an eighth defender out there on the field, and so all of those players you mentioned, but the one I really love is Disco and Howes. He just flies under the radar. Howes is really important because he can play tall, and it was really fascinating. Lever talked a few weeks ago about the importance of the taller players also being able to play small and take the medium players, allowing Bowie to get up the ground and be aggressive. I think if we're going to do any damage in the finals, it's on the back of our defensive unit improving, our defensive systems improving, and they certainly have been so much to like. There were a couple of incidences where we fed a handball back, no-look handballs, and there was a defender there. And, of course, the other part of it, it's not just the back seven, is it? It's the all-team defence that all players have to be prepared to run back and forward and help out the D. I think that they're going to be where that premiership window that they talk about on 360 and stuff on footy classified, or not footy classified on First Crack, is the top 6 in defence and top 6 in offence. We're approaching that window at the right time of the season.
Excellent. Okay, that was the game against Richmond. Coburg versus Casey this week. Again, another loss to Coburg. This was 9th versus 18th on the ladder, and it certainly looked like that way in the end. Coburg was, just that typical non-aligned club. Lots of good players who know how to play together. There was a strong wind down towards one end, and for a team like Casey that plays in conditions that frequently have wind, it was surprising how poorly they used it in this particular game. Players back. We had no Max Heath in this game. Tom Matthews was back. Looked like he had one of those typical bandages around the knee that follows up after an arthroscope. There's obviously been some medical intervention there. Interesting, Luca Kentfield wasn't wearing a knee brace in this game as well, so he's coming back to better fitness. We had 16 AFL listed players. Sadly, it was just such a poor use of the wind. We led at halftime by 10 points. By three-quarter time, we were down by 31, and with the wind in the last quarter, we lost by 43 points in the end. Kicking with the wind, we kicked 7 behinds in that last quarter. A lot of which were set shots. So, like I said, was disappointing considering that Casey players should be well aware of how to kick with the wind. So I'll just go into the individual players. Mapley played both as ruck and forward. Interestingly, I think there was a lot of trial and error, and probably on instructions from the Melbourne coaching staff. Players were being played in all sorts of odd and unusual positions in this game. Onley was played as a mid and then finished up as a back as well. So that was a bit of this, a bit of that. Matthews played forward and as a mid. Mentha played as a back and a forward. I don't think he's going to show much as a forward given some of his kicking for goal in particular. Kentfield was in the ruck for a good part of the game and also as a forward. Cook, of course, was in the back line, and he was probably our best player on the ground. When we talked about the defensive unit at the moment, we've got another very good one sitting there available who I think will slot in very well and very quickly into the system. He really stood out, particularly as they only played T-Mac for half a game. They took him off, and Cook almost slotted straight into the T-Mac type of role. He was the general in the back line, knows how to fly for the ball, knows how to read the play, so he'll be something worthwhile keeping an eye on into the future. We mentioned that Salem probably only played a quarter and a half, and as we mentioned before, he played a lot of the time forward, even a little bit in the mid. He certainly wasn't being played in the back line, which you would have otherwise expected. Taylor played in the back line for most of the game, was in and out of it. Really didn't stand out, but it was difficult because Coburg really knew how to move the ball, and when they moved it into the forward line, they almost invariably scored. The rest of the players in the side were really nothing to write home about, although, like I said, we had 16 players, and it was really disappointing what was going on. But I think the interesting thing was that all these players who we've talked about probably being fringe type players or possibles for the future were being used in multiple roles. They almost didn't worry about winning the game. It was about seeing whether someone could play in a particular role. So that was an interesting highlight for me.
That's fascinating, and it sort of speaks to, I guess, what you use the your resi for. Particularly, they're not going to make finals, are they, Casey?
No, they had a slim chance of getting into the wild card, but really another loss has destroyed it. But they're a long way. They're a long way off it. And like I mentioned in the past, the Casey listed players are pretty ordinary as a general rule.
What's your read on why would they take Tommy Mack off? Is that part of that's part of it to give other players that chance?
Yeah, I think Tom was playing as usual, but I think it was okay. Put Cook in there and let's see how he plays without a Tommy Mack being there. So
it wasn't good play in those seniors because it was right before, wasn't it? Another scheduling thing from the AFL. It's like
So and it wouldn't have been for fitness. I don't think there was certainly no evidence of him being injured in any way, but they certainly took him off, and that was it. Maybe to give Adams a bit of a better run, but certainly Cook really stood up, particularly after in the second half.
Right. Just speaking of man management and King, I don't know, he strikes me as someone who's got high emotional intelligence and a good manager of people. But he's got a bit of a challenge on his hand, I think. Well, not a challenge. It wouldn't be without its challenge managing Xavier Taylor's expectations, because he's a competitive young bloke who would have 100% expected to have been playing AFL footy regularly, wouldn't he? That's how he struck me, both in his draft stuff and the way he talked on draft night and subsequently. And I mentioned a couple of times, and I hope I wasn't being unfair on him, that his body language was not super impressive in the beginning of the season when I saw him live at VFL level playing at Footscray and a couple of games since. But it's been much better, I have to say, much, much better. How was it in this game? What was your sense of that?
It was really, really hard to say because of the conditions. When he gets the ball, he certainly knows how to deliver it. I suspect a lot of the Melbourne listed players get really frustrated by what operates around them. You work your guts off, you get the ball, you deliver it beautifully, and then the guy then turns it over and it goes back over your head. So. Yeah, it's really. It wasn't a game that really stood out for the individual players. Like I said, there was a lot of them you just really forget about. So it was. I hope that, as you mentioned, if he's King's really into the emotional intelligence and how to communicate with players, that the message goes to Taylor: you're being there for a reason.
Yeah. You'll get there. Don't worry.
You'll get there. You've got to learn.
Yeah.
We expect you're going to take time. You've seen already that players have been given an opportunity at senior levels when they're required. You'll get yours. So.
Maybe this season, maybe next season.
Yeah.
At the end of the season, Salem might retire. That frees up a position in halfback flank. It would be challenging for such a competitive young bloke, I think. But it's a good one for Melbourne fans because it's easy to forget about him. He was our highest, number 7 or.
He was a high draft pick. I can't remember.
So, he was our first selection in last year's draft. So that's a super, super positive from that perspective. We've got him coming in. At the moment, he's been fantastic the last couple of weeks. So I feel like he's competing for CJ's spot, if anything. Or Colt's, maybe that's been the other challenge because Colt's now playing that halfback role. But he'll get there, and it's just a little bit of a challenge, I think.
And it's like a lot of players, there's one injury away.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
If, CJ... Not trying to put the wood on him. If something happens to him, we've got someone available to slot into the.
Yeah, and I'm sure King would be saying. And just spoke about JVR before. He wants to be a leader of the club, and he'd be a great person because JVR, Goody had played him for a full season, much to the consternation of many Demonland posters. Remember, he played Casey for a full season before he got his crack. So his time will come.
Okay, next week we've got game against North at Marvel Stadium, or whatever they choose to call it. Thoughts on this one, including the ins and outs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to doing the drill down for the preview, which I'll try to do on Thursday. Unfortunately, I was better. I'm back to work on Wednesday. So I'm really enjoying these holidays, but so I'll drill down. But they're interesting side. I'm very pleased with Wardlaw's injured because he's by far their best player, I reckon, in terms of those young guns. He's also their best contest and pressure player. But just a brief look at their info, which is just a shout out to Wheelo Ratings. WheeloRatings.com is just an excellent site if you're interested in footy at all. Really, really navigable. And one of the pages that you can navigate to is match previews, and it's got a really excellent sort of layout to look at the comparison of the two teams in a glance. So, for instance, all time is one of the few teams we're in front of, 91 to 78. We've not won 98 one times. We've played 78, but at the venue, they've won 9 times. We've played 10 times against the Roos at the venue. They've won 9 of them. Including the last one, which was round 18, 2025, where they flogged us 119 to 83. And was that the last game of Goody's coaching tenure? I've got a feeling it might have been. Or no, maybe did he win the following week and then get sacked? In any case, it's interesting. So it's 8-2. The last 10 games is 8-2 our way, but at the venue it's 9-1. Just on the rating system, overall they're negative 10.4. So I actually don't rate them particularly highly. I think they've gone under the radar a little bit in terms of, criticism. I said this about the Richmond game. It's even in the preview. It's even more relevant for this game. At the beginning of this season, widely, even me and the most optimistic sort of Demon fans would have pegged Melbourne and North Melbourne roughly about the same stage. With the amount of high draft picks Roos have had, with Clarkson and all of that hoopla of him coming in, I would have thought they'd expect to be a bit further ahead at this stage. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think they're just inconsistent at the moment. They've got huge amounts of talent there. It's these guys learning to play at AFL level. I think their backline's a bit fragile. They're still depending on people in the forward line until the arrival of Trembath this year. They're still depending on people like Darling and then Parker around the ground. There's just bits and pieces of leftover former AFL greats sort of throughout the side, hoping that these younger ones will come through. So they play a good game. They certainly took it up. It was a Collingwood this week, I think they played, didn't they?
They should have won that game, though.
They took it up to them, but they didn't quite have enough, that sort of thing. They get, utterly thrashed, was it against Fremantle? That's not surprising. So yeah, they're inconsistent, but they can certainly put in a good effort, and they're a couple of seasons away from it. But their big danger, I suppose, in terms of their future, is that when Darling and Parker and who was the Footscray guy from down the back,
Caleb Daniel,
went
slow as a wet week.
Yeah, when those guys disappear, who have you got to replace them?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but. Yeah.
Just on their big issue really is, they've got some defensive struggles as well, but is their attack. They're only averaging 84.2 a game. We're averaging 98, and our defense is really, as I said, has really improved. We were averaging around 10 over 100 for on defense. We're down to now just looking at 9.9 we're given up on defense. That's fantastic in 12-point drop in 6 games, I think. Overall, our rating is plus 8.8 and theirs is minus 10.4. That probably says where the two teams are at. For a defence, we were negative in this space at round 10. We're now plus 1.3 and then minus 5.4. So just quickly, their top-rated player this season is Christian Sherry, 14.4. And this was an interesting one last week because Nankervis was their top-rated player, but only 14.5. Our top-rated player is our ruckman as well, but he's averaging 18.9 this season. So, there's a gulf in there. Sherry is a bloody good ruckman though, and I don't like he really physically looks to go after Max as well. I bloody hope that doesn't happen. Though King, I think, has been clever this way the year in terms of keeping Maxi out of the contest. It's probably worth noting, George, too, he was off the ground for almost all of the last quarter, or a big chunk of the last quarter, Maxi.
Yep.
Then it's Luke Davies-Uniacke is the second. Sheasel's their third highest rated player. George Wardlaw, who's out. Finn O'Sullivan, and as you say, Luke Parker. And then the other one that you didn't mention, but is a good one, is Jai Simpkin, is their sixth highest rated player. And then Caleb Daniel. And that's, to my eye, too many of their older players are up there in their top 10 players. So that's a good point. So I'm expecting we'll win, and I love the way we ran out this game. So look out, Roos, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and hopefully Larkey continues his inability to kick straight. So he's certainly very good overhead, gets the marks, but he's just been appalling in the last couple of weeks.
And Disco will take him, you think?
Yeah, you'd think so, yeah. Ins and outs?
Look, probably no. Fritter will come back in. I think Melk will go out. I don't think they'll take any risks. I didn't realise that Salo, so he'll, Fitzgerald will probably stay in. It's interesting. We didn't talk about Windsor, but there was a question about where he's playing, and in that mix of players that you read out, he played at higher forward this week. I was really watching him closely, and he played well. So Fitzgerald is playing the role he was. And so I think Fitzgerald today's in. I thought he might get dropped for Cross, but I don't think so now on the back of an excellent game of footy.
Only AJ, I think, would be the only other question if Petty comes back in.
Petty, yeah. But I've got a feeling they won't risk him.
Yeah. I'd like this game. It comes down to the medical staff for Petty. Maybe you put AJ in. I don't mean this in an old-fashioned way, but maybe AJ goes at Zeri and takes a lot of the ruck work, and he's a physical player, isn't he, AJ? Yeah.
It looked like some sort of footy version of a babushka doll, because at the had the binoculars on the quarter-time huddle, and there was Maxi with his bald dome. Next to him was AJ, and just outside the huddle was Jonesy, also with a bald head. So it looked like a demon babushka doll.
Okay. One last thing was the AFL. The girls played some sort of simulation down at Geelong. It's really hard because the report on the club website didn't even mention the scores.
They didn't sort of nominally keep scores.
Yeah, disappointing. And again, if anyone from the club's listening to us, how about putting up the training times for the girls as well? Yeah. Tell us, just put some effort into it.
Support
it's sort of barely a month away until they play, and we're getting nothing. The fans are out there; they want to see the game. They want to back the girls. So they need something more than player A played today, player B didn't. Player C was pretty good. Something more than that. We want to see for ourselves. So put it out there for us.
Good call, George. Bloody support for women's AFL. Too, not just a bloody club. I think the AFL's treatment of the AFLW is not borderline, it's scandalous. I mean,
just ridiculous.
It is just ridiculous. And did you hear about this nonsense about it's a great idea, us playing the Irish Australia versus Ireland, but there's some waiting list so that before they choose which venue it is in terms of the size. I mean, it's so disrespectful. Just have it at the SCG and then, go from there. But it's actively saying, oh, well, we've only got $5,000. We don't want to lose $40,000 by having it at the SCG. I mean, come on, for God's sake.
Yeah, this is investment in the future.
It's investment in the future. You want the game to grow, it's the way they want to kill the golden goose with the AFLW. I love it as a competition. Really looking forward to it. But you're spot on, George. They've got to pull their finger out and support it properly.
Okay, I think that's about all for this week. Thank you to my co-host, Binman. Hopefully we'll have Andy back next week to host us again. And a thank you to all our contributors and questionnaires. D Future 15, Travie 14, Buck Naked, Lazy, In and Under, D Old Fart, Garbo and Monocular. Hopefully we answered all your queries, and we'll see you again next week. Go Demons.
Go Red Leggers.
It's a grand old flag. It's a high-flying flag. It's an emblem for me and for you. Well, it's the emblem of the team we love. a song for you. Should old acquaintance be forgot? Keep your eye on the red and the blue. Where the team played fine in the year 39. We're the team that no one can lick. And you'll find us there after the final bell with the spirit of 1926. Every heart beats true for the red and the blue as we sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgotten?